Welcome to the Things as They Really Are podcast. Today, I'll read an article that has gone somewhat viral overnight for me. But I wanted to create a podcast so those who don't really have time to read it can listen to it as they go on their merry way today. The title of the article is called Changes to the Endowment Ordinance. I wrote it yesterday, January 3rd of 2019. Over these many centuries, details associated with temple work have been adjusted periodically, including language, methods of construction, communication, and record keeping. Prophets have taught that there will be no end to such adjustments as directed by the Lord to his servants. Close quote. That's from the First Presidency statement released yesterday about changes to the Endowment Ordinance. Yesterday, January 1st, I was notified by a friend about upcoming changes to the endowment presentation. He sent me a post from Dr. Alonzo Gaskill, BYU Professor of Church History and Doctrine. Professor Gaskill, on January 1st, hinted that the brethren were meeting in the Nauvoo Temple and were implementing changes that would start on January 2nd, yesterday. And he encouraged everyone to go and to hold these changes and witness the evidence of the prophetic mantle of President Nelson and that the restoration continues. Professor Gaskill quickly removed his comments. Nonetheless, my interest was piqued. Recently, I have read two books that are a must-read if one wants to understand the development of the temple ordinances. They are, as far as I'm aware, the most authoritative on the subject. I provide them here for your convenience if you would like further reading on the topic. They are Wilford Woodruff's Witness, The Development of Temple Doctrine, and Development of LDS Temple Worship. Both can be found on Amazon or found on the article on thingsastheyreallyare.com. Due to the sacredness of the ceremony, I will not go into too much detail about the changes implemented. I will sum up for what I have heard and seen. 1. Eve has become a more prominent figure in the presentation. 2. The covenants have been homogenized between men and women. 3. Various lines have been added or taken out of the ceremony. It might not be a coincidence that the church very recently released a series of short YouTube videos on the subject of the temple ordinances. One is provided in the article. What does this all mean? The overall reactions I have seen have been very positive towards these changes, but I would like to put forth two different ideas for your consideration. Number 1, the unfolding of the divine feminine. Modern biblical scholarship has done some wonderful work and very interesting work in regards to what many in LDS circles call the divine feminine. At the forefront of this is the work of Dr. Margaret Barker. In her work, being a Methodist minister who studied theology at the University of Cambridge, she suggests that the removal of the divine feminine occurred during King Josiah's reforms in the Old Testament, which took place in 2 Kings chapters 22 through 23. In summation, Barker suggests that King Josiah purged the Queen of Heaven from the temple when he found the book of the law in the temple. It was shortly after this that Israel was destroyed because they forsook the female personification of wisdom, Asherah. Barker has spoken of this in LDS circles and has been invited to BYU many times to speak of her findings. Here is just one example from the Interpreter Foundation. The link is provided in the article. To further extrapolate, LDS scholars have done some fascinating work showing how Israel was divided on the issue of Deuteronomistic reforms versus the wisdom tradition. This divide goes a long way in highlighting the interesting family dynamic of Lehi and Nephi versus Laman and Lemuel in the several opening chapters of the Book of Mormon. Lehi was possibly of the wisdom tradition, which makes his vision of the tree of life that much more light-intensive, while Laman and Lemuel tied themselves to the Deuteronomist tradition, which would explain why they viewed Jerusalem as a righteous and ardent keepers of the law, but defied Lehi's visionary experiences. Why do I bring this up? I have felt for a while now that the Lord is preparing his people for the restoration of the divine feminine. Understanding that the restoration of the gospel is growing, line upon line, crescendo, I have come to appreciate the idea of further light and knowledge on many subjects, but particularly this one. For example, not too long ago, I had a slight nudging revelation when the church released a new website devoted to helping gay individuals. While reading this website, I noticed the abundance of the use of the term Heavenly Parents instead of Heavenly Father. For further clarity, I turned to BYU's Journal Conference Corpus and had what I would call a mic drop moment. The results are stunning and can be seen in the image provided in the article. It shows the use of the term Heavenly Parents used in General Conference since the 1850s. It is very sparse and then skyrockets in our current decade. The drastic increase in the use of the term is axiomatic in its meaning. The Lord is preparing us for the restoration of many things, and one of those things is a greater understanding of the Queen of Heaven. And what a better time to do so. The sexual revolution has brought many social issues to the forefront, and it is my opinion that the Lord is going to slowly unveil the divine feminine to those who seek further light and knowledge. What better way to lay waste to the confusion surrounding gender, women's roles, the nature of families, child-rearing, and so forth, than to unveil the Queen of Heaven? Quote, Yea, verily I say unto you, in that day when the Lord shall come, he shall reveal all things, things which have passed, and hidden things which no man knew, things of the earth by which it was made, and the purpose and the end thereof, things most precious, things that are above, and things that are beneath, things that are in the earth, and upon the earth, and in heaven. Close quote. Number 2, a brief history of changes in the temple ordinances. For me, the line for the First Presidency statement today that was the most interesting was the following, quote, Prophets have taught that there will be no end to such adjustments as directed by the Lord to his servants. Close quote. No end goes both ways, forward and backward. The following is a non-exhaustive list of the changes that have occurred to the temple ordinances during this dispensation alone. The first, Joseph Smith received instruction to stop allowing any gender to be baptized for any specific individual in 1842. Number 2, the sealing of children was not performed for the first time until after Joseph Smith's death. Number 3, I have written about one change here, a revelation that impacts the ordinary temple attendee that they probably know nothing about. It speaks about a revelation Wilford Woodruff got that allowed those who are not related to individuals to be able to perform ordinances for them. Number 4, during the tenure of President Heber J. Grant, there were a few things removed or scaled back. Various oaths were completely removed from the ceremony. Various descriptions about penalties were completely removed. Number 5, in 1936, an explanation of the temple veil was added. Number 6, a slow unfolding in the 1960s made film the primary presentation tool during the endowment ceremony. Number 7, in the 1970s, Satan's language is scaled back to a varying degree. Complete lines are removed. Number 8, the 1990s brought various significant changes that range from the following. All penalties are removed. Even more language used by Satan is removed. Language surrounding women and their covenant responsibilities is altered and removed. The time of the endowment is shortened by streamlining oft-repeated phrases. If any corrections to this list is needed, please provide me the source, as I would like to get the information correct. This all paints a self-evident picture. The ordinances of the temple are very malleable, and therefore their presentation should not be considered as doctrine. Truths taught therein can be considered doctrine, but we should be grateful for heavenly parents that allow these things to be altered based on the circumstances and need of their children. Conclusion. President Nelson is living up to his promise, is he not? Quote, we are witnesses to the process of restoration. If you think the church is fully restored, you are just seeing the beginning. There's much more to come. Wait until next year. And then the next year. Eat your vitamins. Get your rest. It's going to be exciting. Close quote. Thank you for listening to this edition of the Things As They Are podcast. Stay tuned for more content. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow my blog at thingsastheyreallyare.com or like it on Facebook. Thanks for listening.